Good morning. For those that are online, we're going to give a couple of more minutes for people to arrive in the building or online. So just stand at ease for another 5 minutes, please. All right, good morning. We'll go ahead and get started here. We have a number of, you go ahead, Carter. It's fine. We'll go ahead and get started. I'll call this meeting to order, May 9th, Higher Education Committee of the House. Welcome those that are with us online and in person. I knew this would be a hybrid meeting. We wanted to do a post-session wrap-up. We have a report from Technical College System of Georgia. I'd like to share a few thoughts and ideas that I have about what we'll do in the interim, and also use this opportunity at the end of the meeting to solicit thoughts from the members if there's anything particularly that they would like to look at over the summer. So with that, welcome everybody. We're going to flip the agenda just a bit to go to TCSG first. Mark is going to be presenting from a virtual context, and I think his might be a bit shorter than President Riley, who is here with us in person from Georgia Student Finance. So with that, if no one has a question, we'll lean into it, and we'll go to Mr. Peavy. Are you ready, Mark?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. You guys hear me okay?
We do.
Okay. Well, we appreciate the chance. I am certain I'll be shorter than President Riley because she's a lot smarter than me anyway, probably has more to say. But we do appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys a little bit this morning from a post-session wrap-up piece from our perspective. And I'll just simply start by saying thank you to all the members there and for your support of the activities that TCSG does and has. We felt like it was a good session from our perspective, certainly budget wise. We appreciate the support of the legislature and the governor and all involved in terms of where we landed. Just a couple of highlights. I'm sure that most of you are well aware of this, but a couple of things that we were very, very excited about was the opportunity to help our colleges with some of our high cost programs. And so we're very appreciative of the dollars that started via the House adding them. And we're able to remain in the budget for our aviation and CDL and nursing programs. We talked a lot with this committee about how those programs really are high cost on our end, and the ability to add some dollars back to the funding piece that helps cover those costs will be hugely beneficial as we move forward. So those three programs in particular have effectively been loss leaders for us. And we're very, very happy to be, taking a look at a process that'll move us towards effectively covering those costs as we move down the road. So very happy and very appreciative of that. In terms of where we are and how those impact, this committee has heard from other entities and certainly have talked about it, but enrollment being a challenge for post-secondary right now. We're actually at a spot where year over year right now, we're about 4% up in terms of enrollment across the board. So enrollment on our end is looking strong, in particular with some of these high cost programs and high demand programs that we just talked about, things like aviation, CDL, nursing. Many of those programs, if we lump all those together, we're up double digits in terms of our current enrollment path. So we'll see how that plays itself out. But certainly over the last year, as we move into what is now our will be our summer term, we're seeing strong enrollment in some of these high demand areas across the state. We're very excited about seeing where that moves going forward. And so we will continue as we move into the coming year to make those a focus. To make sure that across the state we're hitting those high demand areas with all that we can in terms of making sure we've got folks in those types of programs. So all of that really does start and can go back to the fact that we appreciate the support to help us cover the cost a bit better with those programs, so we can continue to expand them as we see the need across the state. So very excited about that. In terms of what else will keep us busy and what was in the rest of the budget cycle on our end, when you get to the capital outlay side of the house, we were very excited to have 4 projects that made it through the process, and all of them are focused on high demand needs around the state. We've got a robotics manufacturing opportunity that we will be building out down at Ogeechee Tech. Obviously, if we all follow what's going on with Hyundai and that part of the state, and that's exactly what that manufacturing program will be focused on, is helping as the suppliers come in to focus on building up their employment needs there. We're fortunate to be able to do manufacturing centers in both Augusta and Columbus that are also focused on that kind of need. And so those are the things in terms of a building project we're moving forward on. As you also know, with our Quick Start arm, we've got two of the largest projects in the nation in the EV world in terms of those two plants opening up. And then on our end, we're specifically building out training centers that are a part of that as we ramp up to train the initial workforces for both Rivian and Hyundai as they prepare for a 2025 open at both of those plants. And so huge focus in the EV industry. We're having conversations now also beyond just the initial workforce for those two EV focused plants. I'm sure that many of you know, and another reason we're excited about the manufacturing piece in Columbus is Kia is announced that they will be building one of their primary EV vehicles on the same line down in Troup County at their existing site. And so really that EV focus is something that we will be working on across the state. And so we're excited as that stuff moves ahead. So that's a quick overview of kind of where we are from a legislative standpoint. Again, super appreciative of the support that the legislature as a whole shared, and we continue to have just a true appreciation for what we're able to see and feel in terms of the support. I will mention briefly, and I'll throw it out as an open invitation now, but we've just completed a cycle typically in March, and then again in April. In March, we do what we call our Eagle Award, which is the adult education instructor and student of the year. We recognize those folks, run a competition across the state and recognize those folks. And then again in April every year, we do what we call our Goal and Rick Perkins Awards. Goal is our student of the year from a technical education standpoint, and Rick Perkins is the instructor of the year. I have shared the video stories. Mr. Chairman, you've got those. We won't take the time to go through those today, but I would love for the committee to be able to just hit those links and listen to the stories from this year's winners. Truly impactful. If you want to help understand how the help that you guys provide for TCSG really changes lives, listen to a couple of those stories. We would love to have anybody interested. We do. If you want to get in the difficult world of judging which one of those folks is best, I'd love to have you as we move forward. And so we'll follow up with some invites when the time comes for that. But I'd love to share those two with you. Again, they're probably 5-10 minutes long, so we won't go through them here. Would love for you to hear some of those stories, because that's really where, from a TCSG standpoint, you get an understanding of where the rubber meets the road and how every bit of support that comes TCSG's way really turns around and impacts students all across the state. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll stop there and just happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Thank you, Mark. Let me ask you, so I do recall getting the links to the videos and took a quick look at those. Did that just came to our office or me personally? Didn't go to the rest of the committee as yet?
No, sir, it has not. It came to you personally, and so I would love for you to share them with the rest of the committee when you get the opportunity. So absolutely, we can get that out, and we'll do so with your recommendation and introduction. I think it's would be very helpful for people to watch and get an understanding. I'd had the opportunity to judge that contest in the past, and while it's a great opportunity to meet a lot of people, it's a tough decision. Yeah, we're
careful what you ask for. You may get it to have to choose
yes,
between the group of people that that make it to the final competition. It's very good. Do we have any questions in person or online in anything related to the department technical college system that from the gentleman's presentation and that we might like to exercise the opportunity to look at over the interim with them?
Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Knight, yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Tell Molly I've got the message. I'm not sure where the raise hand button is.
Well, you're recognized, so there you go.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And Mark, thank you for what you do. I wanted to go back to, where we landed. I know your comment is, appreciate the effort this year and what we did and where we landed as far as the budget goes. And you had mentioned the high cost programs, the CDL, aviation, and nursing. So a little bit more specific, we put this money in because we know those were high cost programs. Tell me, how do you think, what's your projection on where this is going to be used? How is this going to help you guys? And so that we can make sure that, the decision going as far as funding this year, good decision. And then as we look in the future to, future budgets, how do we evaluate what we're doing and maybe what the future needs would be?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Great question. Appreciate the chance to talk about that a little bit. Number one, the dollars in terms of these specific programs that came our way, we're farming those out. We're sharing those based on the credit hours effectively of the programs that are up and running. And so those programs out there on a kind of credit hour by credit hour basis is where we're providing that support. Really, from our perspective, that is an incentive to be able to continue to do the good work of having those programs in place. Those are, like I said, loss leaders for us in terms of costing more than what we bring in terms of tuition. And that's why the support is very, very appreciative. And so what we expect to see as we pour money back in this particular money into those programs, that we'll continue to see expansions of those programs where they exist right now. And so that's really from our perspective, that is dollars to support the existing programs to help in terms of how we have been funding them because they are high need. We certainly understand that the focus that we have to have on those programs. And so our colleges have them, even when it's costing, they've got to find other ways to help pay for the cost. This is a step in the right direction in terms of helping us recognize the full cost of those programs, which then in turn makes it easier for our programs to be expanded where they are. If I'm a college president and I need to add another nursing cohort, the addition of these dollars that will come my way as I put that new cohort on is extremely helpful in helping me cover those costs. And so that's where we expect to see this. They're going out to on a like I said, a credit hour by credit hour basis. We'll be tracking that to make sure that we see that support be reflected in expansions of those programs as we move forward. If that's answering your question at all. So.
Well, I think, and Mr. Chairman, if I may, I think it does start to address it because I know, again, like you said, these are loss leaders. We were, $4 million or so that quite frankly, these three programs alone were costing. In other words, the negative effect that these programs were having. So I'd like to see that. And then as far as adding new cohorts in, I guess my question goes back to if we're already in a deficit with the existing amount of students in these programs, we're adding new cohorts. Obviously, this will help if we need to add new cohorts, but it's still, wouldn't that then still not put us where we're getting back where the cost of these programs are closer to the equivalent of the tuition and the fees that we're getting?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, you're right about that too. And where we will look to add programs, I mean, we do our best to make sure, and our presidents work this math and this magic math at times on a daily basis in terms of, especially these high demand programs. We are always doing our best to expand them, even if we've got to, for lack of a better word, rob Peter to pay Paul. That's part of what we've done in the past a bit, and really this increased money for these programs in particular help us rob from Peter a little bit less than we might have in the past to be able to expand these programs. And so we will expand the programs where the demand is there and where the need is there. This will certainly help us do that. But our college presidents will continue to find ways to keep this funding going if we're fortunate to be able to continue down the path that this committee and the House budget started on, and we get the additional phase-ins in the future, then that will certainly make sure that we're covering the full cost, and it'll give our colleges a chance to dollars that they were pulling from other sources, squeezing out in other places to be able to fund these programs, will allow them to expand to other places also. So that's really where we see is we're going to, because these are high demand and absolutely needed all over the state. We have in the past, and we'll continue to try and meet that demand in any way we can. These additional dollars allow us to do that a little bit easier, and then gives us the opportunity to expand in other places and other programs too, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Knight. I do have another question from Representative Glaze, but let me ask you, and then Chairman Knight, you weigh in on this as the higher ed vice chairman or the chairman of the higher ed appropriations subcommittee. There's without picking a fight with the executive branch, there was a lot of discussion this year as the budget went forward about one legislature can't do this, and this wasn't, this was subject to funding. I've checked in the last couple of days, and the truth of the matter is, if it's not outlined in the Georgia State Constitution, everything's subject to funding. And we have a funding formula for TCSG now. The language that I think Chairman Knight was referring to was a 3-year phase in, and I think that language was, correct me, Chairman Knight, but I think that was a disregard that one legislature can't bind another. And that's true, but everything is subject to funding for us next year. Just because something's in the budget, a conservative budget process could take continuation funding out of the budget if the program wasn't done. So I think it's incumbent upon us, this committee, working with Chairman Knight's committee and Chairman Hatchett and the entire legislature, to continue to support TCSG. We asked them to provide a workforce for the state. We try to give them an indication, and I think we did that loud and clear this year from a legislative perspective, that we thought these things were imperative to our workforce, and we gave them language. Of course, that's subject to funding every year and subject to revenues, and we have to have a balanced budget, and we have to have buy-in from the Senate, the House, and the executive branch. But am I right in saying that, Chairman Knight, when you put the 3-year phase in the budget, you knew, of course, it was going to compete with all things around the state for funding next year, but that was the idea you wanted to purvey and send forth to TCSG in order for us to prepare for the workforce? Is that, am I putting words in your mouth, or is that what you indicated?
No, I think, Chairman, I think that's correct. Obviously, everything is subject to funding, and we want to make sure that the legislature and the executive branch are arm in arm going forward. But I think what we've discovered through just these 3 high demand programs themselves is that it's a large loss leader. And again, I've said it repeatedly, the technical college system is uniquely positioned to make sure Georgia has the proper workforce and to meet those demands. And I think the goal of everyone in the legislature and the executive branch is to make sure we provide the resources so that the technical college system can complete their mission and do it well. So I would agree with you in that sentiment. The General Assembly wants to look at this and make sure that we're giving them the adequate resources moving forward to make sure they're successful in their mission.
Thank you, Chairman. We do have a couple things. I just want to say that the governor has been very supportive of our workforce and done things to bring jobs to Georgia. And I think there was just probably some miscommunication with staff this year. And we're going to work real hard with them from this committee, and I'm sure that the Appropriations Committee, to remove any miscommunication that may have been there. I have number 25 here in the room. Is this related to this line of questioning? I'll go Chairman Dempsey, and then Representative Glaze. We'll come back to you. I think you may have a different question for TCSC that we'll come back to, but this is along that same line. So I'm going to go to Chairman Dempsey.
Yeah. Good morning, Chairman Knight and Chairman Martin. I know you toiled in the field of appropriations too, as well, in some years. I do. As I look at that, I think there were 3 three issues particularly, line item in there. And those are hard. It's, yeah, they're the funding. Yeah, I pulled it up real quick just to look. And so I do think it is an incumbent upon us to all work together to see what we can do to make sure to keep everyone still going in the right direction, because I appreciate so much what TCSG is doing and with the goals that they have and the way we are addressing the workforce here in our state. So I'm glad that Chairman Knight is on the call today as well. And together we know we'll all work toward that.
Thanks, Chairman Dempsey. We'll move on. And Mr. Peavy, unless you had anything to add to Chairman Knight's inquiry, we'll move on to, we had a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
Representative Glaze, you were with us
Yes.
on- Yes, ma'am. We hear you.
Yeah, good afternoon or good morning to everyone. This question is just, how do we fill those areas inside of TCSG where we are actually trying to build out a workforce where we just don't have the numbers? I think that's a question, because we can't keep taking losses. What I think might be an option is to connect to our Georgia DOE, CTAE, CTI programs. I just judged their annual April programs around the state, and we had over 580 young students, 10th through 12th grade, who are just doing phenomenal work in areas of high demand, very skilled at very young ages. Is there a way to connect these same students back into our TCSG system in ways that are more productive, where we're getting these students from high school directly into these high demand careers?
Yes, ma'am. Great question. I think we certainly recognize that as an opportunity. Also, we're doing a number of things, and we really do appreciate the partnership that we have with Dr. Wall and the rest of the folks over at Georgia DOE. So we're very, very appreciative and feel like we've got a great relationship with them. One of the fruits of that has been over the course of the last year and a half. We kind of, for the first time, put some specific articulation agreements in place. So that for some of those students that you saw and that you judged, the courses that they're taking, we've got about 14 of them that we put in place over the course of the last year and a half. We've got probably that many more that are in the works to come forward. But it's some very direct articulation agreements that if they're taking some of those CTE, and especially in some of the high demand career areas, they're taking those courses on the high school level, they're getting a direct college credit for that. And that's obviously one way to help connect them immediately while they're in high school. We obviously also connect with high schools from a dual enrollment standpoint. So we continue to lead the state from a dual enrollment standpoint. And that is another way that we connect with them. But it's really those articulation agreements that we've got in place. Some other things that we're working with DOE and our USG partners and other folks on from an admission standpoint that will help be able to do that. But to your specific question about how to better connect and how to more directly connect with the high school students, those articulation agreements are really one of the key areas where we see that happening, and we're continuing to put more of those in place. And super appreciative of Matt Jones and the superintendent and Dr. Wall on working with us to be able to find more areas to put those in place. And so we know that if a student has already gained a college credit before they graduate high school, they're much more likely to continue on to get that next level certification or degree, depending upon what they're trying to do. So we will continue to work those articulation agreements to build that partnership even better.
So I do have one suggestion, and Mark, and that is that the articulation agreements absolutely are the one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is making sure we have those students' direct names, their high school level, the schools that they're in. We have their information on what they're interested in and their projects that they've done, how well they've done. There might be another side of this, and that is recruiting right there at those competitions every year. There may be an opportunity to pick those students up right there, give them opportunity to connect into a recruiter from our USG or TCSG system. And that way we don't leave great kids sitting on the table waiting for them to make the connect when we can really have the liaison at their competitions to actually enroll them or begin the process. Just the other side of the coin.
Yes, ma'am. Point well taken. We do have most of the student organizations that do those programs, certainly at the Skills USA and other entities like that. We have corresponding programs on the post-secondary side. And so those secondary and post-secondary programs do work together in ways to make sure that, at least for those students who are in some of those programs, get more directly connected. So we'll certainly make sure we talk with what we call our high school counselors, high school coordinators, who are the team of folks across the state that are focused at each college of directly connecting with those respective high schools. We'll take that message back to them also.
Thank you, Representative, and thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Chairman Perkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations, by the way, on how eloquently and delicately you put the appropriations process and the disregards. The question I have is along those lines. When we're looking at high cost, the loss leaders, high demand areas, the linemen, the nurses, some of these that are exceedingly expensive, but these are things we need throughout the state. The question is, I know several of our presidents and our schools have done an absolutely phenomenal job in the past in industry partnerships and some of these high demands to reduce the cost, maybe to use their staff of these, the folks that need these employees to be trained as instructors, maybe some equipment from them. Have we seen through a challenging economic climate any changes in the ability of our industry partners to partner with us in these high demand, high cost careers?
Changes, if there's a couple ways to, and I appreciate the question, Mr. Chairman. You think about the couple ways to think about your term changes. One, if you're talking about changes, meaning they've pulled back, I will tell you no. We have not seen folks pull back from being able to support changes. In terms of have they stepped that up, then yes, I would say yes, we have seen changes. And really what I mean by that is obviously some of these high demand career fields and high demand industries have struggled with low unemployment and a challenge to bring in the workforces. We've seen those folks step up even more directly. I think specifically if you think about the healthcare fields, many local hospital systems across the state really do exactly what you're talking about, offer up staff to help teach nursing programs, offer up space. We've got some great examples with Phoebe Putney down in Albany, who are really helping build out what will be a full-on training center where they're training their next crop of nurses. We're doing the training piece. They've provided some space for Albany Tech in that instance to be able to come in on their site, do the training programs, and have those nurses walk down the hall and work directly in a Phoebe Putney environment. So we see things like that. If you go down to Augusta in the healthcare system there, the Piedmont healthcare system, they've actually in the process over the last year taken what was an old working hospital that Piedmont bought and had kind of mothballed. Well, now they've allowed us to come in. They've helped us and with some of our capital outlay dollars, we've renovated a huge wing of that old hospital as a teaching space, and they're then opening it up to have their nursing staff and even begin to treat some patients there as part of that teaching hospital. And so we've continued to see those types of things where folks need to get creative in terms of helping build their own workforce. They just seem to have stepped up more to see a direct partnership with TCSG can help fill that need quicker and better. I mean, the goal, as an example, for the work down in Augusta that I was speaking to, is they've got a capacity to be able to train about 200 nurses in a given year through that program. Oh, if you ask the folks at Piedmont about what their need is for nurses in a given year, they'll tell you they need about 200. And so that's just a direct example of what you're talking about in terms of an industry stepping up and say, this is a need. We want to partner with TCSG, and this is how we'll do it to help meet our need.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let me further open that toward Chairman Perkle and Chairman Knight, also Representative Glade, really everybody's conversation. Mark, I think I want to acknowledge, or I want to put something out and us to acknowledge it if I'm correct. TCSG, you charge a flat tuition for TCSG education, correct? One tuition?
Yes, we've got a couple programs, and nursing is one. Our tuition rate is $100 a credit hour. For nursing, we actually are at about $132, but outside of that, everything's a flat rate of $100 a credit hour.
Okay, so that's actual a tuition. That's not an add-on fee or whatever. It's
no,
actual,
that's the actual tuition.
Okay. That's
yes,
what I'm going to. I've forgotten that. So you do have that different tuition differentiation, but you still is it fair to say that still teaching a nursing program at $132 as opposed to teaching another program at $100? And you're not in the business, you're not a profit center. I don't when I ask this question, but in terms of bottom line after that's done, which would have, a less negative number at the bottom line, the nursing program or a generic TCSG program?
A less negative number, if I understood you right. That would be the generic program.
Okay, the generic. My
yeah.
point. So even with my supposition here is even with the $132 tuition, you're losing more, if you will, and making it up in volume. I don't mean to suggest.
I'm happy that we're not selling used cars, Mr. Chairman, because we'd be running a business in the ground. But yes, you are correct.
And so the point I want to make here is, and Chairman Knight, I think you've been right on it with, if you're still with us on your position this year on CDL and nursing and aviation, is if we want to give you the mission at the legislative level, at the 30,000-foot level, those are the jobs we need. The problem your presidents have is at the institution level to keep the business running. Adding those programs puts them in a bind, for lack of a better term. And I just want to today, and we're going to work on that. There's going to be several working groups out of the committee this summer, and one of them is going to work with Chairman Knight. And Chairman Knight's group may actually lead it, but if that's the case, Chairman Knight, you and I can speak about it. But we want to work on it and come up with a comprehensive plan that the legislative branch and the executive branch, can agree to and acknowledge that there's got to be a sustainable model to deliver the education we need for these. We're spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to recruit these professionals into Georgia that we don't have, but we won't put a little extra money in to train our home folks. And I want to work on that with Chairman Knight. And by I'm volunteering the other 25 members of the higher ed committee. We want to work on that with Chairman Knight's subcommittee over in appropriations, our friends in the Senate and the executive branch to come up with a sustainable model and not leave here in April or the end of March and thinking that we have something done and then find out that we have to come back and redo it next year. So we're going to, I'm not going to put you in a bind that you necessarily have to say anything with that other than I hope you'll work with us.
I can guarantee you we'll do that. We are very appreciative. I'm happy to say that, Mr. Chairman, and to Chairman Knight in particular for taking that up as a focus of his. We're very appreciative of it. We want to make sure that our college presidents do a lot of juggling, for lack of a better way to put it, in terms of how they always find the dollars and work hard to make sure they've got the dollars in place to specifically focus on these high demand programs. And we will be glad to help in any way that we can. And we'll look forward to being at the table to help be a part of that process.
Okay, I don't see any more questions. The last thing I want to say, and just touch on it briefly, is obviously, and I'll get into it, it'll be part of the presentation later, but very disappointed in the outcome with House Bill 249, which was an edit of the eligibility to open up the eligibility specifically as it relates to TCSG 2-year programs, because as we went through the first year, we applied the same percentage of completion to a 2-year program as a 4 that didn't make it past the governor's desk. Again, the governor has been and was supportive of the initial bill to put that in place. So I'm just going to go with the assumption that the information he got is the same that I've gotten since the veto message. And I'm looking down at a spreadsheet that says money allocated to TCSG less than 27%, 26.5% of that was able to be used because of the limitation of the 80%. And yet I am told that he was informed by some of the budget people in the executive branch that TCSG made more use of the program than the university system. Am I looking at numbers? You probably don't have those numbers in front of you, Mark, but didn't we hear from you guys during session that the 80% was a gating factor, because 2-year programs, people tend to plan on a 1-year time frame, and that was a gating factor from you? Am I wrong?
No, Mr. Chairman, you are not. From our perspective, there were a number of it was a challenge to be able to define what 80% is in some of our programs, and certainly define it in the time frame where we could actually have students apply for those dollars. And so we were very supportive of the work that you and the rest of the folks did to change that, because it will open it up for more opportunity for those students. If you're taking a short-term program, you'll very quickly go from 40% done to 75% done to 80% done. And in a window where you've got an application process like that, lowering that number will absolutely give our colleges a chance to put those dollars out to help more students. So,
and I won't belabor the point, other than Chairman Riley will be here before us, and I'll ask her. But if memory serves, the rules and regulations that implemented the completion grant program 906. That section specifically prioritized those closer to graduation anyway. So anything we did in this year's 249 would have taken nothing away. The further you are down the road, the higher priority you would have been in getting the grant. So I don't think we've done any damage. Anything further for Mr. Peavy? Anything further for Mr. Peavy? Mark, thank you very much. You told me you had 10 or so minutes to provide us information, and I think you see how interested this group is in what you all do. So please pass our best along to the commissioner and all the people over at the Technical College System of Georgia. We appreciate you.
Will do very much. We appreciate it. Thank you, folks. I'll be around if you need anything else. The rest of the call, I'll be here. So.
Thank you very much. With that, if somebody needs to take a break, they can, but let's move ahead. We're going to invite Commissioner Lynn Riley to wherever she wishes. Do you want to stand or sit? You're welcome to do either one. Okay, we're going to turn on the podium mic. Commissioner Riley.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you today. I want to provide a recap of the activity that occurred after session when the General Assembly sine died, and we stepped right up and got to work. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to get this presentation up and running. I'm probably going to need it. Thank you. Well, while that's happening. Okay. Here we go. And then
Yeah, control F, no, control. No. There we go.
Thank you. Can everybody see the PowerPoint that we've got up, or that may need to share the screen? All right, thank you. Again, we're very grateful for the members of the General Assembly for the appropriations that Student Finance received this legislative session. We've got a lot of work to do and a lot of work we're very excited to do. And I wanted to be able to take just a few minutes. I'm going to go very quickly through these slides. Some of these you've seen before, but I wanted to be able to provide a complete packet for members of the committee to have for reference as they will enter into a work phase over the next few months on some of the topics that I'll cover quickly today. Review again, and Chairman Knight, I know you will remember this from your Appropriations Committee, what we presented during session on the impacts of the governor's recommendation to increase the Hope Award factor rate. So I included these slides with apologies that I didn't update them to say that they're no longer proposed, but they are actual activity that will be happening for the Hope Award calculations in FY 2024. But members of the committee may recall that in FY 2022, the percent that Hope Awards covered of tuitions at certain institutions was significantly lower than 100%. And as you can see by the red bars on this chart, some were significantly lower than even 90%. So in FY 2023, the members of the General Assembly adopted an appropriations bill that would provide funding for at least 90% coverage of tuition for the prior year that was assessed at the public institutions across the state. And from this slide, you can see that that raised the funding quite a bit for some of those schools that were significantly below 90%. In FY 2024, the governor recommended bringing the Hope Award factor rate to 100% of prior year tuition. And this slide illustrates by the gold section of this bar chart, the additional amounts that students would receive benefit from at the public institutions in Georgia. And at the signing of the appropriations bill last week, that 100% factor rate has gone into effect starting July 1st. And I will remind the committee that that is based on a prior year tuition rate. And that's in opposition to our Zell Miller award rate, which is 100% of the current year tuition rate. We've been asked frequently about that is there still a distinction between the Hope and the Zell Miller Award? And yes, there is, based on the year of the tuition amount and other determinant factors for the Zell Award that have to be achieved in high school. The potential number of students, now this is more closely, it's not just potential, this will be reality, but over 50,000 students could be impacted by the increase. And so that would be less money out of their pockets and more money provided by the state through the lottery funding to help them better afford their college education here in Georgia. And the potential semester impact for full-time students at the public institutions, as you can see, Georgia Institution of Technology and the University of Georgia and Georgia State and Augusta would have a significant benefit to our students that are studying there, because this is a semester, if you double it for a normal 2-semester college year, there is significant cost savings to our students and significant reduction in out-of-pocket costs. So again, I apologize for these all saying potential. These are effective impacts for FY 2024. Now we, as I said, right after the General Assembly signee died, we went right into the development of changes to regulations that we presented to our Student Finance Commission board last week for approval so that they could go into effect as of July 1. And we have some new programs that I'm going to quickly go over and some changes to existing programs. We are moving forward with the Behavioral Health Professional Service Cancelable Loan Program. And again, thank you to the governor and members of the General Assembly that have provided us resources to be able to deploy them to build and implement this program. This Service Cancelable Loan Program was created by House Bill 1013, and this is going to be a new program for student finance. This will be a service cancelable loan program for postgraduate studies in behavioral health. This will be helping students that will be going for their postgraduate training and degrees, and then licensing that would certify them the ability to go into the behavioral health workforce. So the award amounts are $20,000 for a full-time student with a maximum aggregate of $120,000 over 6 years to accommodate those that are going into postgraduate studies to help them get into the workforce and service our residents in the state of Georgia. And if they work in the year for a full year in the field of behavioral health, they will qualify for a year of their loan to be canceled. We have degree programs that we have identified at our institutions in Georgia that would provide the training for these students where they could enroll in these postgraduate degree programs. And our next slide shows the professions that would be eligible for these certified and licensed professionals to go into practice in the state of Georgia in areas of need and be eligible for service cancellation instead of repayment.
Madam President, can I stop you there and just ask a
Absolutely.
question relative to the discussion we had earlier about subject to funding? Serious question, practical matter here.
Mhm.
If somebody goes through this this program as outlined here a couple of slides back and incurs a loan or has any type of student debt up to, we'll just pick a number, 60,000. Okay, so for every year they work in their field in Georgia, they would get a repayment through your office of
Of a year's worth of their loan.
what they incurred for a year. So
Correct.
that could be a different amount.
Well, correct, Mr. Chairman, but we will be the issuer of these notes. So the note will be held by
I
student
understand.
finance.
Okay, I understand that. So you'll be the issuer. So, and do they get to choose? Is it first in, first out, or they would choose that if I work for a year, I want the year that I had the highest loan amount? Do they get to choose the note they cancel?
Well, whatever they borrow for a year, it would be applied on a first in, first out type
Okay.
basis. We don't anticipate that anybody that comes to us is going to be asking for less than the maximum award amount in any given year, but should they ask for less, the promissory note would reflect the amount that they're asking for, and that would be serviced off for a year in the order that they incur the debt.
Okay, without getting into the details of them being different from year to year, as a fiscal matter, what does the balance sheet look like that? Because I mean, so if they enter into this program with us, I guess the money's spent. So
We would carry
we count on that. The canceling of that loan is, for lack of a better term, a backdoor appropriation.
It would be a retirement of a debt to the student. We would carry it on our balance sheet as a receivable, and then we would write that off on our balance sheet after the year of service.
Okay, so my point is, given the recent conversations around, subject to funding, what if a future legislature decided they didn't want to do that?
We could not issue notes if we don't have appropriations to give that money.
So,
On
okay, so
behalf
that
of a
is the way.
borrower.
So you're only issuing notes that are appropriated in a year. So there's not an ongoing promise to do it. It's just on an annual basis. And if they had the promise based on that, then you had the funding. Okay.
You are correct,
That's
Mr.
what I was
Chairman.
that's what I was trying to get to, is that,
And to remind the
Fair.
committee, $10 million was appropriated in the FY 2022 budget that we have carried forward to, and we have that available in our bank account, if you will. So when we begin the issuance, that money will be able to write notes and issue promissory notes to borrowers up to that $10 million limit. So moving on to Senate Bill 246, part of that bill was a loan forgiveness program for nursing teachers that would be teaching nursing students to grow that profession. A second portion of Senate Bill 246 created the Inclusive Post-Secondary Education Grant, or IPSE grant, that the Student Finance will administer. This will be available for qualifying students with intellectual disabilities that are enrolled in approved programs at USG and TCSG institutions. We are developing the process of applying for this, and the amount will be that we will award per term is equal to the standard undergraduate tuition rate at the institution. And Mr. Chairman, there was an appropriation in the FY 2024 budget, so we have funding available to be able to offer these grants starting in the fall of FY 2024. Well, FY 2024 fiscal year,
Okay, that
this
was right.
August of 23.
Okay, so you would have that in the 2024 figures, and this would only be if somebody signed up for it, while they might be eligible, I think for, was it 6 years? 120,000, was that?
Oh, that is those numbers are the behavioral health. This is awarded on the inclusive post-secondary is a different grant.
Yeah, I was back to the,
Behavioral health.
all right, so you're not there yet. You're not to the medical examiner one. I'm sorry, I'll wait.
And I apologize. When I was speaking about Senate Bill 246, that had a component that is going to be controlled by a different agency,
Right.
the state medical.
Actually, that's what I was going to ask you, not the inclusive post-secondary. I was going to ask you about the nursing component of that. I recall now that's going to be administered by a different group. So we
Correct.
perhaps will need to have some, the same thing there, that I believe the amount that was budgeted this year is budgeted at such that it's not to do the full the full time for an individual on an annual basis. So you could sign up for the program and only have your loan canceled for 1 year subject to appropriation.
That is correct.
Thank you.
My reference for Senate Bill 246 is that the inclusive post-secondary education grant was originally on House Bill 185, and it was added to 246 and passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor. And so that was just merely a reference to why I'm talking about this program on Senate Bill 246. So there are a number of IPSE programs that are currently in existence, and this slide just lists the participating USG and TCSG institutions. So students that are accepted into the programs at these institutions would be eligible for the IPSE grant that Student Finance will be administering. And again, that will be starting this upcoming fall semester, fall of 2023.
Had an opportunity to visit Kennesaw State's program about 2 weeks ago, and they are so thrilled with this. So thank you for your willingness to do that. I think it's going to make a difference. Those parents have spent so much money to get their young adult ready to this point. Their funds are gone, and anything we can do to help them is just life-changing. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair Lady Dempsey, and we thank the General Assembly for allowing us to perform this program. It was clearly a vision of the members of the Assembly, and so we look forward to being able to deliver on that vision. The next slide talks about the medical examiner loan repayment program. As Chairman Martin was referring to, that was approved by House Bill 163. And this is for eligible residents that will be or are employed by the Division of Forensic Sciences at the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. And this will require 12 months of consecutive full-time employment to be eligible for a repayment of an outstanding balance that has been verified on a previous federal or state of Georgia student loan. And we will provide a verification process and a verification of employment and a consecutive period of employment to be able to issue payments directly to the holder of the loan to satisfy debt. The dollars will not flow to the medical examiner, but will flow directly from Student Finance to the holder of the note to pay the balance that they have serviced off. This is on a graduated payout for the medical examiner for the first year that they would work for the GBI. They would earn, if you will, $12,000 payment against an outstanding loan that is eligible. After the second year, it would be 18,000 and so on, as you can see the apportionment over 5 years of the program. And the lifetime limit of payment on any outstanding loans would be 120,000. The University of North Georgia Military Service Scholarship. This is a new opportunity for
Madam
students.
President, I've set a terrible tone here by interrupting you with questions as we go.
No problem, sir.
Representative Jackson, I think, may have a question related to this topic. It may actually be best that you have so much that we go through them on a topic.
Happy to do so.
Representative Jackson, did you have a question about the medical examiner or something we just covered?
I think it was the one before that, the IPSI program. How is it that, how were these schools chosen?
We're working on your microphone. Let's turn this one off.
Oh, okay.
There you are. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How were these schools chosen? Was there a requirement for them to be a part of the IPSI program?
Thank you, Representative, for that question. These programs are currently in existence. I apologize that I'm at a loss to be able to determine how they were selected. I believe that they chose to implement an inclusive post-secondary program, but we can verify that. But they are all currently at USG and TCSG institutions.
Okay.
To follow up, Representative Jackson, everybody that has an inclusive program is on the list. This is not available to a subset of the folks offering the program. So if you offered the program before, this is available to you.
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
So it's possible that other institutions would come forward with an approved program. They would also, at that point, be eligible. Representative.
That is correct.
Thank you. That answers. And one other thing, I just want to commend you on the medical examiners loan program. It is so desperately needed here in the state of Georgia. And I understand that there have been a number of people that are interested in signing up for this program. I know what people have gone through regarding the examiners and all of that. I experienced it. And I think I told y'all that when I was when I spoke before the House. So I commend you for this. It's definitely needed.
Well, thank you, Representative Jackson. And as I mentioned earlier, the Board of Commissioners of Georgia Student Finance approved these regulations last week. So we will be publishing them shortly, along with instructions to those that wish to participate so that they can provide us the information that's necessary so we can sign them up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move on to the Military Scholarship Program. This is a new opportunity for students that are at the Georgia Military College to be able to complete their, after they have completed their associate's degree at Georgia Military, to be able to be rolled into the University of North Georgia program and receive a scholarship to assist them with the underwriting of costs and to be able to be eligible and qualify for this scholarship. They have to agree to serve 4 years in the Georgia Army National Guard after they complete their studies at the University of North Georgia. This program also has funding provided so that we will be able to offer it in the upcoming fiscal year. Some program changes that we have made for our fiscal year 2024. The Senate Bill 86 is going into effect, and this will allow students that are pursuing their high school graduation through the accelerated career diploma option may utilize HOPE grant hours before they have utilized all of their dual enrollment hours in high school. There is a dual enrollment cap of 30 semester hours to be used in high school, and the accelerated career diploma program management had spoken to the committee of the challenges of stacking courses in the proper sequence to be able to achieve their certifications or potentially an associate's degree while in high school. And so this structure now will allow for utilization of Hope Grant hours before they have exhausted all their dual enrollment hours in high school. And this will be also available for students in these accelerated career diploma programs starting in the fall semester of 2023. We've made a change to the Zell Miller Scholarship eligibility. This was based on House Bill 607 that Chairman Perkle was carrying. This would change how student finance would calculate an equivalent score of the ACT to the SAT score of 1200 that is required for Zell Miller eligibility of our high school students. And so student finance each January after January 1, 2024 will publish that equivalent ACT score to the 1200 SAT score so that students know what they have to get on an exam to be eligible for a Zell Miller scholarship that has to be received before they graduate from high school. We've made changes to the Hope and Zell Miller grant. These are some award rate changes for basic law enforcement and basic post-certification programs that are offered at TCSG. This has raised the maximum award from $3,500 to $3,750 for basic law enforcement, and also an increase of $100 to the commercial truck driving certificate programs at TCSG. Tuition equalization grants received new award amounts for FY 2024. The award increase has gone for annual amount from $900 to $1,000 starting in FY 2024. And Hope and Zell Miller private scholarship amounts have been changed, and we have revised the award rates. The Hope Scholarship Award increases from $2,282 per semester to $2,496 starting July 1st. Zell Miller Scholarship Award also increases from $2,977 to $2,985 per semester starting July 1st of this upcoming year. Two pieces of legislation, as Chairman Martin referenced, were vetoed by the governor this year. House Bill 249 was deliberated by the General Assembly, and this was offering a reduction in minimum required credit hours to be completed to be eligible for the college completion grant, and an increase in the lifetime maximum award amount. There was an addition late in the session to provide a CDL program for veterans, which would be a new program at TCSG. However, as Chairman Martin referenced, this bill was vetoed on May 5th. Also, House Bill 319, Chairman Martin carried on behalf of the Student Finance Commission to dissolve the Georgia Higher Education Assistance Corporation and move the assets to the Student Finance Authority. This legislation was amended on day 40 of the legislative session and included a provision to change the structure or the process of any increases in tuition at USG institutions. And this bill was vetoed April 4th of 2023. Lastly,
Madam President, I'm going to weigh in on that because I to the committee here, and then if you have, you know, if we will, as they say in the military, I wasn't fortunate enough to serve, but I've heard said, you know, rank aside here. So if anybody has any questions on these two items that I asked the committee to support, I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that today. I feel like that's fair. To address 249, I would just simply say that it did what we said we were going to do. It made students eligible at an earlier time in their process. I want to be real clear and ask the president to back me up here. Is this made them eligible? This did not mean they got the grant. Is that not true?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman.
And is it not further true that you know, that again, this made them eligible, and you have in your rules and regs that priority is given to those that are closer to completion?
Mr. Chairman, you are correct.
So I'm going to again say that the governor was very supportive last year. I think it was 1437 somebody would remember the bill 1435 that set this program. The governor was very supportive of this completion grant process. And it is my belief that he must have been given some information to the contrary about what it actually did with the communications that I got late in the process without being invited by his staff in to talk about what the bill actually did. Further, we did add CDL program for veterans at the request of Senator Anna Vitarde. I want to tell this committee that I vetted that with the governor's staff and asked if that would cause a problem. The veto message said that was our problem, but I apologize to our committee and to the people that I think would have made great use of the language in House Bill 249 to further their career chances. And at both the university system level and the technical college system level, had this language been adopted, and to the veterans that would have availed themselves of the program to get more people to drive in the commercial driving area to get products from our ever-growing port in this economy. So I'll take a question if anybody has one about that, but I think we had a good piece of legislation, and I'm firmly committed to working with the House and the Senate and the executive branch to better understand it as we move forward next year, because it did pass 219 to 1. Representative Jackson, did you have a question, or did we not line through you from earlier?
All right, well,
There you are. Yes, ma'am.
I forget to unmute. Will we revisit that particular item next year?
That is the chair's intent.
Okay,
I will again. That's why I wanted to be real clear with the committee. I thought we had a good policy. You know, and again, I want to thank the governor. He was instrumental in helping us get this done in 2022 to start the program. I think we had it's a communication flaw or a communication flaw in adding the senator's language. That's what the veto message said. And there's no need in looking backward. We'll look forward, but I think both of those can be good policy. I think they were good policy decisions, and we'll have good discussions and try to bring better policy in 2024.
thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Any further questions? And then on 319, I mean, that's a complicated issue. The Senate put some language on that I for one thing would have brought us into the process. I think when I presented it to the House, I said I maybe had a different idea. I won't get into the Senate's reasoning for putting it on there, but my thought on it was in a positive manner to work with the university system, and doing that, knowing full well that there were constitutional questions, because there's a constitutional separation. So on that particular bill, my commitment is to continue to work and to get language to dissolve the Georgia Higher Education Assistant Corporation, which was the underlying bill that I would have preferred to have without amendment. But based on agreement with the other chamber, they were adamant over bringing it forward with theirs. And I do not object to and absolutely understand the governor's veto number 1 on April 4th of that. And we'll bring that back, 319, the underlying bill, next year. Stand for any questions there. That bill got caught in Senate politics. Sometimes that happens. Again, we'll look forward, not backward. Madam President, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I started out the presentation this morning, I talked about the journey that our awards of our Hope Scholarship has gone through over time. And I wanted to just wrap up quickly with some information for the members of the committee for potential consideration during the months between now and the next time you convene, on some award rates for our private post-secondary institution awards. So the next slides are some illustrations of some of these awards. The Hope Scholarship Private Award was created at the same time as the Hope public award back when the voters approved the lottery and when the Hope Scholarship was created. And you can see that starting in 1994, and these are fiscal years, we're looking at a very small semester award amount. And then in 1997, it moved to $1,500 and stayed there for quite some time. In 2009, there was a bit of a jump. And then after a couple of years of the Great Recession, it was reduced in 2012. And then you can see a very slow growth of the semester award amount over time to the current amount that is going to be awarded in 2024. That's just under $2,500. The Zellmiller Scholarship was created in 2012 during the challenges that were faced by the state during the Great Recession, and the revisions were made to the HOPE program, which created the Zellmiller Scholarship, which again, I would remind the committee, must be earned while a student is in high school by having a eligible grade point average and test scores. Both those things are required in statute and have to be earned before a student actually graduates from high school. And with that, they receive an award equivalent to the current year's tuition at the institution they're attending. For public institutions, and awards set by appropriations for the private institutions. And as you can see, in 2012, the award was right at $2,000 per semester. And since 2012, it's grown, and it is in 2024 just shy of $3,000 per semester. And this next slide just illustrates the growth pattern of both the Hope and Zell private scholarship award amounts over the life of the program. As you can see, that the Zellmiller Scholarship came into existence in 2012 and has been consistently higher than the Hope Award amount. And finally, the Tuition Equalization Grant Award amounts starting in 1994, and we just went back to that same time period as the Hope. This was actually in existence prior to that, but in 1994, the award amount was $500 per semester, and you can see some fluctuations over time based on the amount appropriated for the program. And most recently, for the FY 2024 year, the amount is $500 again. And Mr. Chairman, with that, I'm happy to take any additional questions and available to the committee for the rest of today's meeting and all throughout the off season, if you will. Our team will be available for assistance to the committee.
Thank you, President. Does the committee have questions? All right, we're getting our microphones on and off. This is committee have questions for President Riley. Representative Jackson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only question is, can we get a list of the private institutions that are involved that can get the Hope Scholarship? The students can receive the Hope Scholarship. Just a list of the institutions where these students are enrolled.
Certainly, we'll absolutely provide that to the committee. Thank you for the question, Representative Jackson.
Thank you.
Further questions? Further questions? Well, we're going to be able to give some folks some time back. I want to thank President Riley for doing this, putting this together for us, and bringing us this information. The bills that we brought forward. We have a number of bills that were held over. Some made it out of here and are resting in the Senate. Some that got to conference, in various places. So we'll work toward those in the off session. We're going to get out and get to some of our institutions. So I have just as we wind up here, and then I'll ask, for the good of the order, if there's anything coming from the committee. But we are going to work in at least 4 areas this summer on items. So I'd be interested if you can we'll get something out and list these 4 items, and I'll ask the committee members if they have a particular interest. We'll do our best to match your interest with one of the working groups. Of course, you're able to attend, any of the meetings. They'll be public, but we'll try to match that up. But we'll do that based on committee interest and geographic distribution, so that we have folks from around. There is a Senate study committee, or excuse me, there is a joint study committee that started in the Senate, I believe, under Senate Bill 176, that will be filled by the Speaker. In addition to the work that group does, we're going to focus on the dual enrollment. I'm working with President Riley on some criteria around that to determine what the outcome of dual enrollment is actually being across the state. And we're not pointing to or picking on anyone as we do that, but we'll do it with the eye on completion, or the students getting what they need. At the risk of, well, I'll just set the thought process that I have in this is dual enrollment is very expensive, especially if a student is in dual enrollment, is in a public high school, and enrolls in dual enrollment in a public college. The state actually pays for that 3 times. They pay for a formula student in K through 12. They pay for a formula student in the university system, or the TCSG system, and then we pay tuition. It's a very expensive way to provide education. So I think it's fair to look at, as we talked a bit last summer about, as we allocate our human capital and dollars, what's the best way for us to do that. So without saying anything more than, if it's 3 times as expensive, we need to make sure we're of value there. There are some cases where once a school counselor approves a student for a dual enrollment class and they're in it and they invoice the student finance, we don't necessarily get direct information as to how they finished. Were they able to use it for anything? Did they graduate sooner? And I think it's just fair to everybody to see if this is something that is we're getting the most value. The students are getting the most value out of, so that we can improve it, where it needs improving. A lot of the dual enrollment is done virtually now. So we're going to look at that area. The second thing is we're going to look at, very deeply, code in Title 20, 20-3-411. We casually refer to that as, we'll just add those guys to TEG. I know Chair Lady Dempsey had a bill that got caught up with some additions that she was passionate about that we didn't move on in the final days of the session, but we're going to try to look at that. Honestly, if you read that piece of code now, using an analogy, it sort of says, if you got here on Wednesday when it's raining and you deliver this, then you get a grant. And if you came on Thursday and it was dry, you don't. And we need to come to I believe we need to come to some policy decision and say that tuition and equalization grant, which also brings you in to be able to teach dual enrollment and hope activity. I think we need to ascertain what our policy is as a state, and working with the Senate, the executive branch, and our private partners, to find out what the policy is, set a policy again, basically rethink what happened over a decade ago, and try to get away from the one-offs every year. Because I think every year I've been here, we've had one of those. The third thing that I would like to see us look at, and then I'm committed, if Chairman Knight's still, I see you over there on the computer, Chairman Knight, is work with Chairman Knight's appropriations subcommittee and take a look at formula funding. I mean, that's a heavy lift. So I'm not going to pretend, Chairman Knight, unless you have a lot more authority than I do, that you and I or our subcommittee, your subcommittee and this committee can do that without a buy-in from, leadership in the House and the Senate and the executive branch. But I think it's clear we could come up with a recommendation and get our hands around, sustainable is a big word these days. I mean, we definitely need sustainable. operations at our technical college system, because it's just unfair to give these presidents missions at the 30,000 foot level. And then when they're marching on the ground, in order to keep the doors open, they have to do other classes. We tell them what we need. We know what we need. And if they open up more of those, they lose money. And then we kind of look at them and go, hey, how do you run? How you're running your institution? You're running at a loss. You're not making the numbers. So we want to look at that in depth. And then the last thing, and this is going to be really generic because I haven't formed it, so I'm going to put it in the lap of a committee and let them try to do that. But I think we have to be more nimble. I know that Chancellor Purdue at the university system is doing that, but I think we have to be more nimble and in our degree certification availability to provide for our workforce. I mean, the workforce is just moving faster in 2023 and 2024 and in the decade that will come than state governments tend to do. And I don't have an answer for that. So hopefully we can put a group of folks together and invite some people in from business and maybe the technological world to tell us how we do that. I think education is a little bit like you start into it, and by the time you do your 4 years in it, and if you're in the medical field, it may be longer than that. By the time you finish, the rules have changed, and you need to go back and get one more year or learn how to operate a cyber knife in order to do that. And so I don't have the answer to how we do that, but I think the delivery mechanism and how we update certifications needs to be or can be improved and looked at to make Georgia a more nimble place at the technical college level and at the university level. And we can get a lot of help from Chancellor Purdue in those folks over there. They are already moving in that direction. And what I'd like to do is work with them and TCSG and our private partners so that, and I'm going to say this slow so I can do it, so that we do a better job of collaboration. The former governor of Mississippi said that at a board meeting last summer, and I've heard it before, but all of our university system, our technical college system, our private partners compete for students. There's going to be less students, less traditional students if you believe the world coming through the pipeline. I mean, just fewer children were born, so there are going to be fewer that are graduating. And rather than have a cutthroat competition for who gets what student and lead into the lost financing of educational delivery, I think we can do a really good job at defining what the needs are for the future of work and do a better job with collaboration. So that's what I have for us. Light summer. Other than that, I hope you guys aren't doing anything. We're going to get out. We're going to try to get to if Representative Bentley's here. We've been trying to for 3 years. We definitely want to get down to Fort Valley for the representative. We've been working on that since COVID came up. And we want to get out to some of the other institutions. So I look forward to doing that. Does anyone else have anything for the good of the order? I have one more question for you that I'll ask, but if you have anything else for the good of the order, we want to do that. Anyone have anything? Chairman Dickey, I see you smiling over there. You bound to have something going on. You're muted. Chairman Dickey, you're muted.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Martin, it's been a great meeting. I've been juggling an ag tour in South Georgia with some University of Georgia and ABAC folks, and so it's been good learning about that end of higher ed as well. So thank you for this meeting. Very informative.
Well, thank you, Chairman Dickey. I knew you told me yesterday you were doing that, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give you a commercial, and we appreciate what agriculture does in Georgia, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to tell people where you were and what we had going. Anything further? If not, we're going to endeavor. I'm sorry, Representative Jackson.
Okay. I don't know how to pull up the hand, so that's why I'm raising my hand. I also want to invite you, and I'll do this through for the president. for you and any members to please come and look at Savannah State. As you know, our president has resigned. The Board of Regents, the chancellor has appointed a new person to come and work at the university. And I think she will be here officially July 1, but she will be here during the month of June. And I think we need a push because there are a lot of conversations that are going on in this community. And it's because of a lack of what is happening here. And I just think that the presence and to coming in and maybe sitting and talking with some of the community people can help to keep us afoot. You know, everyone feels like Savannah State is dying on the vine. And I've talked to you about this before, but we need help. And we want to tell you some of the things. I don't know what this new president will be talking about, but one of the things the governor talked about was K through 12 programs. And as you know, Savannah State back in the day during my time and before my time was known as a teacher education, a school that taught most of the African-American teachers in the state of Georgia. And it was in the 70s when all of this sort of turn and programs were removed and sent, you know, to another institution. And the desegregation plan is what I'm talking about. So I really want to invite you to come down here and see just what is going on. Most people, when they come, some of the legislators that have been here, when they come, they are surprised, particularly when you're talking about the marine sciences program and some of the programs that you've talked about here today. I visited a program, and this is my last thing. The lottery people were here. They did a reception, a luncheon reception for the recipients of the Hope, I guess it's the lottery scholar, the Hope Scholarship, and those that were in the program for 4 years and graduated. And that was really something to see. And members of the lottery committee also came down. And their thing was, we didn't know about all of this. So that is my invitation. And if you want me to set up anything, I'll be happy to do it for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. We'll get back with you on that. Also, Representative Bernal, you had a thought or a question?
I just wanted to invite you all to come and see Clayton State. I just wanted to make sure Clayton State was on the list of colleges to visit.
Thank you, Representative. Thank you for doing that. We'll try to get out and about and do that. Last thing, and by the way, there's some folks here in the audience. You would be remiss of me to adjourn without requesting each and every one of you come to the microphone and say something before you leave. But now, I seriously, as I sound this, if somebody would like to, we always finish city council meetings with public comment. So if anybody has something they'd like to share, I'll give you a few minutes. The other thing I want to say to the committee in the room, you were handed out a performance audit from Greg Griffin about the tuition equalization grant. So you might want to give a read through that. And it was in your email. If you're not with us, it was part of the email. It was an attachment to the email that was on the meeting notice. So I want to draw your attention to that, and that might help as you look. So again, we'll get this out to you, but sort of working groups in the four areas of dual enrollment, TEG, formula funding, and then the collaboration, the work together to reinvent and be more nimble, work together for our higher education process. So with that, if there's nothing further, we will move along for the day, and I will thank you for being here. We are also, I'm going to write a check that Brittany Valentine is going to have to cash with us over there. If we can find a way, we're going to do a Google Calendar as we try to put these visits to campuses together. If you have hard dates that you can't be there, maybe you can go in to put there. Again, I'll get with Brittany and we'll try to work that out. I know with 25 people, we're never going to find a date that's going to be perfect for everybody, but we'll do the best we can. With that, if there's no further information, nothing further before the committee, we'll stand adjourned without objection. Seeing none, without objection, we'll be adjourned.